Starlink on flights. You finally won't be cut off, or you'll be trapped in a nightmare scenario where there is no peace anywhere. How do you see it? Interesting details we get into it is that United Airlines has paused their rollout. They've turned it off. They were putting it on the United Express planes. The little ones, which you would think aren't the ones that need it, but it turns out they're the ones they can most easily play around. And they paused the rollout because they were saying they were getting interference to the pilots' radios. So anyway, Starlink on airplanes, good or bad?
I guess my question is, how much are they charging for it? And how much are they planning to charge you?
I think they were talking about just making it free.
Oh, okay.
We'll see. Well, I think at this point it's free. Whether it'll stay that way when it comes out of trial, we'll see. Yeah, so United, they're saying that they stopped the Starlink because the pilots were hearing static on their radios, and they blame the Starlinks. So you might wonder, what kind of radios were they using?
I don't know. Why you told me, Alex? It seems like you know.
Of course I do. So it turns out the radios they use to talk to the air traffic controllers are AM radios running in the air band, which is part of VHF. It's like 107 to 138 megahertz. They're AM radios. This is not an accident. This is not them failing to upgrade to latest technologies. They looked at all the technologies and decided that AM is the best technology for real-time air traffic control. Because AM has this crazy property, which in most applications is terrible and why we don't use AM anymore. If you mix two AM radio signals, and then when it hits the radio, what you get out is a sound that sounds very similar to what you would have gotten if you mixed the two sounds. So if two people are talking at the same time on the same AM frequency, you hear both talking the way you would if they were both talking to you in the room. Every other radio technology, they purposely make sure that only one wins, so you never get garbled data, right? FM, if you have two signals showing up, whichever one is taller is the one you get. That's the only one you receive. You don't hear the other one, which means that also any noise that isn't a nice clear voice signal shows up as static. Any data packets that accidentally land on the AM radio, that's a burst of static that sounds terrible. All right, Ryan asks, can my car tune into air traffic controllers? Well, your AM radio on your car only goes up to 1.6 megahertz. 1600 kilohertz is the highest AM station. I basically think that if you were able to keep spinning the dial till you got up to 108, you probably would be able to pick it up. But it just doesn't go that high. It's 100 times higher in frequency. So yeah, so apparently the Starlinks are interfering. I happen to have once upon a time gotten a whole bunch of radios through FCC certification, and it is bonkers where interference can come from. Like, it sounds weird, but so if you're sending a signal at 3 gigahertz, you can pick up the signal at 1.5 gigahertz, at 750 megahertz, right? At half, a quarter, an eighth, the signal shows up again, lower. You can also, if you're sending packets at 3 gigahertz, if you're sending packets at a regular basis, like 1,000 a second, those packets probably end up making you show up as a 1 kilohertz signal as well. Because you are like 1,000 times a second, you're doing something that's a kilohertz. So just sending packets at a regular basis on some frequency makes you show up on the frequency, which is the rate that you're sending packets at. Yes, there are harmonics, and then there's also the idea that doing stuff at that frequency can make packets. And then there's beat frequencies. If there are two radios on the plane, you will also, and you of course you see there are two signals if you pull it up on Spectrum Analyzer. You'll also see signals at the sum and the difference of the two radios' frequencies, right? They're beat frequencies. They each go at different rates, but every once in a while they line up and make a spike. And so those spikes end up showing up at a regular basis at the sum of the frequencies, the difference of the frequencies. So even though no one is transmitting at those frequencies, they are. Together they are. So in the end, this all probably comes down to some guy with aluminum tape, with copper tape, putting in a few spots until the weird signal goes away, and then they call it a fix. Terrifying how after all this design, all this RF modeling, the last step is often one guy going around with some copper tape, sticking it on things to make that last weird bit of signal go away. And that just seems to be the reality. All right, Lad says, if Neuralink went mainstream, could current networks handle the usage? I have no idea what kind of bandwidth or whatever Neuralink works. uses. I could imagine it being super low bandwidth, that it just pops out some text of what the person is thinking about. In fact, I suspect it's more like that than live streaming video from inside the person's brain. Right? It's just a couple little pins picking up what neurons are saying. But I don't know anything about it. When I was in college, we did an exercise to calculate the total bandwidth of the human brain. And I feel like it was tens of gigabits, which seemed like a big number at the time, but every year we're getting closer. Now, I don't know if that was a long time ago. People know a lot more about brains now. But like, I don't know, I want to say the eyes are 8 gigabits per second or something streaming to the brain. And then everything else is like a gigabit. All right, I run this Passport, and they are awesome, by the way. But since you want questions, here you go. I use Speedify on a Raspberry Pi 5 and connected 2 cellular hotspots to it through USB 3. Good start. Raspberry Pi 5s, they are good. They have nice, fast processors that have the hardware acceleration that Speedify is able to take care of. You know, I put it on my 950 megabit internet connection and ran a speed test and got like 905 megabits. You know, close and like it's fast.
But yeah, I mean, the one common concern with plugging a bunch of USB devices into a Pi 5 is the power usage. So yeah, one, making sure that you're using a supported, power adapter. But if you have lots of USB devices, consider maybe a USB externally powered hub so that it's not drawing power for your USB devices from the Pi itself.
Since the recent update to Raspberry Pi OS, the hotspots are no longer recognized and won't connect. Or Speedify recognized them.
I remember this person coming into support. Yeah, we couldn't figure out what was going on. I mean, it seemed like something at the OS level wasn't recognizing them anymore. I don't know.
We have a Raspberry Pi sitting.
Yeah, I don't think we have the USB hotspots this person has, though.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, tethering phones and stuff has worked fine for us, but yeah, we haven't reproduced any issues. But whatever model he has of USB modems or hotspots, something's not working with the latest Raspberry Pi update. I don't know what it is. Trying to figure it out.
In the past, for specific devices, we've discovered packages we needed to add.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, there's an additional package.
PMUX-D, and underneath it's got 20 different packages to support different devices. I think each fireman understands, right? So Speedify, it's watching your operating system for anything that looks like an internet connection, a network device that has an IP address. And then we try to use it and we learn about it and try to figure out, does this actually get to the internet? What's its latency? What's its loss? Does it seem like it's cellular? And Speedify figures all these things out, populates the stats, and decides how to use it to improve your internet. But if the operating system doesn't think it's an internet connection, we don't see it at all, right? That's the level that Speedify lives at. Yeah, well, can you tell us what kind of device it is? Your hotspots? There we go. The actual part number. All right, so that's pretty crystal clear that it has something to do with Raspberry Pi OS and which drivers they decide to include or whatever. Rolling it back fixed it. Sean says, regarding bypass.
I see YouTube can be bypassed. Do you lose benefits by bypassing? What does bypass actually do? So what bypassing means is that Speedify will not send it through the VPN tunnel to the VPN server. Basically, it'll send it directly out of one of your internet connections. So yeah, you're losing any of the benefit of going through Speedify, any of the bonding or protection that Speedify has of traffic going through the VPN server. You lose all that. The benefit is the traffic going to the server on the internet doesn't appear to come from the VPN server. And with certain services, most often it's banks and certain streaming services and things like that, they don't like traffic coming from VPN servers and they reject it. So bypassing is our way of you let that traffic go normally out your internet connection as if you weren't using Speedify, so that service can still work and all your other traffic can still go through Speedify and get the benefits, but you're not getting any of the normal protections and benefits out of Speedify. So if YouTube is working for you through Speedify, then I recommend just leaving the bypass off, letting it go through Speedify. But we had certain cases where certain people were seeing YouTube get blocked from some of our VPN servers. YouTube had some strict rules and was rejecting some of our VPN servers. So we added the bypass option for people seeing that issue. The servers they were using weren't allowing it, then they could bypass it and we still use YouTube normally out their internet connection.
Are you able to set up bypass for networks? I have some VPNs connected on my router. Am I able to set up bypasses for some network subnets?
So you can set up bypass based on IPs, but it's the destination IP that you're talking to. So we don't have support for, say a particular, yet we're planning on saying like, this particular client device or this particular source IP, bypass that. But if you're talking to a particular destination, you can say, and like your VPN server, the IP that you're talking to, you can tell Speedify to bypass that and it'll go around. Speedify won't go through the VPN. Currently, that stuff is only available through the command line interface, though. We might add more of that into the UI and things like that. But there's a streaming bypass command on the Speedify CLI, and you can specify domains, ports, IP addresses that you want to go around Speedify, and set up rules there through the CLI.
Yeah. Purdell says that sort of bypass for networks sounds like a job for Linux policy routing.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff you can handle right in the OS as well. Speedify doesn't have support for that. Yeah.
Meaning, if it's in that IP range, have Linux give it to your other VPN instead of giving it to Speedify and asking Speedify, right?
Yeah, if that's what they mean, then set up something in IP tables or some of the policy management stuff in Linux.
When will you guys have a Philippines server? Oh, that's a question for Brian Purdell, who seems to be here. Add firewall rule to mark packets and add policy route stack on that. Brian will probably say something about Philippines, but I think the nutshell is that when we've put servers in the Philippines in the past, they have not made things better for people in the Philippines. That so often you're trying to get off the islands, and that what you're really looking for is improvement there, and that we've gotten better performance sending people in the Philippines to use a server in Singapore than we have when we've put servers in the Philippines, for reasons having everything to do with Philippines. Yeah. Most rented servers in Manila have connectivity that's about as good or worse than our customers' home internet there. In most places, we can get servers with nice low latency 5 gigabits up and down, but not in Manila. More technical version of what I said. Getting the speed servers and trying to figure out where to find servers for reasonable prices that actually make people's internet better can be tricky. For me, putting a server in Manila drastically improved gameplay on Minecraft and Raft. A person playing from the Philippines to Singapore, Hong Kong server had a lot of packet loss, but not when the server was in Manila.
So yeah, I mean, for
VPN server, or you mean the Minecraft server?
Yeah, but I would say, if you're running just, a specific server for a game or whatever that doesn't require a ton of bandwidth, then that type of thing might work. But for the type of server that we need for VPN services, running a whole bunch of traffic through it, we're not able to find anything that suits our needs, at least within our cost. I don't know if there's very expensive options or not, but within the cost that we're willing to pay.
Yeah, it's interesting. Customers in Africa, right? They don't want servers in Africa. They want servers in Europe. All their traffic is going there anyway. I could see a local server helping with some things like gaming, but the speeds we've got have been too low for us to put it as a public speed server for everyone. Right. So you actually put a server is connected to in Manila, right? We see where that would be good, but too many of the other things, YouTube and Netflix and Facebook, don't have servers in Manila, I think is the issue. Which is why I asked about Speedify, because seeing it myself, that place could serve Manila helps. Yeah, we are working on and have nothing to announce self-hosted servers. The idea that you could get a VPS and put a Speedify server on it and have a server for you and your friends in Manila. We are trying to get there. There are people working on it at this second, but it's a surprisingly big project. The thought has occurred to me before. What if different speed servers could give you messages when you connected? You connect to the Manila server, and it just straight up says, this is great for connecting services in the Philippines. But if you're trying to get out of the Philippines, you should pick a different server. If Speedify would just say that when you connect to it, would that be interesting? Would that be helpful? I don't know. Just a little thought. I think we've answered the questions we can answer here. What is new with Speedify?
I mean, lately we've been doing a lot of work on Speedify on routers, making lots of improvements there. Yeah, more new stuff coming. It is available and working on routers now. We have OpenWRT support. We have the Miri bonding router that Speedify comes packaged on. So you can get Speedify on routers right now, but we're continuing to make more improvements there. Our most recent releases, we had more enhanced statistics from Starlink dishes. So Speedify can, if you're connected to Starlink dishes, Speedify can reach out and ask the Starlink dish for all sorts of interesting stats about whether it needs software updates and how much it's sending and receiving right now and what the dish thinks the latency is. So you can see lots of interesting statistics, particularly if you're connected to multiple Starlinks. It's a pain to try and juggle around and have your app talk to that. Speedify can just reach out to all of them and get stats from all of them and show it right in the Speedify UI. So it's a useful enhancement. We had some people tell us that it's very useful. Some of the different alerts that pop out of the Starlink dishes letting them know there's a problem. Speedify will display that stuff.
We've got the Jitter Buffer in there, although it's a command line interface only. We need to get the user interface in there. For those who want absolutely consistent latency, who want no jitter, we have a Jitter Buffer feature where you can mark certain traffic, like certain port numbers, to be jitter buffered. Then we actually add latency to it. And then if the packet arrives late, we don't need to add any latency to it. And so what you get is this absolutely consistent, no bumps in latency at all. Not great for real-time calls when you're doing a video conference zone, you're both talking. But for a live stream like this, actually, we're not using it, are we? I don't think we turned on. We'll do it next week. I think that if we added an extra 1/10 of a second between when we spoke and when you saw it, you'd never notice because you respond by text. I think there's often a minute now between when we say things and when it streams to your screen, then you decide what to say and type it up. So who would notice an extra 100 milliseconds? But it would hide any glitches. Current version of Speedify is 15.6.4. If you're on anything earlier, you should probably update. Yeah, we kind of got in a funny thing after each of those little point whatever releases were pretty good. We fixed a few bugs and added one tiny feature that was so small it didn't seem worth bumping the number. And so just every week for a while we were doing a release. 15.6, 15.6.1, 15.6.2, 16.6.3. By the time we're up to 0.4, I mean, at some point we should have bumped it to 15.7. Yeah. That's fine. Point is, you guys should stay up to date. You shouldn't get more than 6 months behind. Yeah. The software stops working 2 years after it was released. But honestly, we're putting out software at least every month here, and you shouldn't fall that far back. Whoa, let's show Speedify on this computer right now. What is going on here, Kevin? So this is Speedify running on this Mac Mini that we're live streaming from right now. And it's got a couple internet connections. It has Ethernet going over to Comcast cable modem. It has Wi-Fi. It has Wi-Fi to a Starlink dish, which has run out of data. And we have been capped by Starlink to 1 megabit. And then it has cellular from a tethered iPhone. Why don't I change the priority on the Starlink that I know is not working to back up? So we have different priorities, right? There's automatic, which lets Speedify pick it for you. There's primary, which means use it all the time. If this connection will help, Speedify should use it. There's secondary, which means use a little less. Use it for speed boosts if you need it. But honestly, if the primary connections can handle it, let them handle it. Backup connections are the connections that you only want to use if you need to stay online, either because they're very expensive or perhaps because they're pretty terrible. Like in this case, Starlink has speed capped us to 1 megabit. There you go. Graph's starting to look much more normal. So now you see it's using the Comcast cable to send pretty much all the data, and it has backed off, right? So there is the cellular, but right now it's basically not using it. But the moment you see things go badly,
Starlink, yeah.
Look, that was our problem. That's why Speedify was freaking out and using all the connections. The Starlink was losing just about a quarter of the packets. Oof, a nightmare. So Speedify was covering for it. Nice. Good work. And one more thing. Down here, you can see the live streams. Speedify automatically recognizes high priority traffic. In this case, our stream to YouTube Live and our stream to Twitch, right? And so it's applying quality of service to them, making sure they go through, right? It's a Mac in the background. If the App Store decides to upgrade some apps or something, Speedify, it'll let their packets through, but only after it let the live streams packets through. It knows YouTube and Twitch first on the outgoing, and then if there's extra bandwidth, it would be okay to let it do something. And he thinks it's 20 to 30 seconds of delay right now from the moment we say something to the time it live streams, makes it all the way to your computers. I kind of thought it was less. Last week, I actually had the YouTube up, and it's a totally weird thing to be watching yourself with a delay. I thought it was less of a delay than that.
Yeah, different streaming services definitely have different options and low latency streaming and things like that. But sometimes even the low latency streaming, it's like, within 5 seconds or something. It's not what I would consider low latency, but
you are obsessed with latency. Yeah. Can it work on any router?
So not any router, but we have OpenWRT support for certain architectures, mostly ARM-based ones. We don't have support for MIPS-based routers right now, and I don't know if we will. A lot of those are pretty slow processing power-wise.
It is a disagreement in the company. I think we should just not support MIPS. MIPS routers are not as fast as ARM routers, and people who are using Speedify expect it to be fast, and I don't want to explain this because it's your router, not us. If they didn't choose the fast router, they shouldn't use Speedify. I think it's that simple. And us trying to make it as fast as we can for those people on MIPS, I think we're wasting everybody's time, not just our time, but the people who try to use it. That's my feeling. Other people say, oh, we can make it work. We should make it work.
But yeah, if you have a device with ARM or x86, if you happen to have a router running x86s are kind of rare, I guess, but there are some devices like that. With OpenWRT, you can run it on that. It is possible to run Speedify on other Linux devices and have it act as a router as well. But yeah, there's lots of, the GLINet travel routers are pretty nice. If you want a router to carry around with you to have Speedify on, that's definitely nice. And then there's, the Miri X510 for, more professional use cases. You can get all sorts of connections plugged into that. It has, 2 SIM slots for 4G and 5G, and you can plug up to 4 Ethernet WANs into it. If you don't want to use any of them as LAN, it has Wi-Fi, USB for tethering. So you have lots of nice rugged design with battery packs and things like that. So definitely useful for professionals on the go.
All right, folks, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate all of you taking time out of your very busy days. Appreciate you, Kevin. Any last words, Kevin?
No, I think we're good.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you all online. We make our engineers live stream every Wednesday. So subscribe if you want to ask them your tech questions.